This is a teaching video for Wilder Reiter, the Wild Horseman by Schumann. We're going to start with the right hand. You will notice that it has a lot of staccato in this piece, so short and bouncy it is. We're going to start with our right hand with the thumb on E above middle C. So we're going to, most of these are all eighth notes, with the occasional quarter note thrown in later on, but this first half of the piece is all staccato eighth notes. So we're going to start with our thumb on E, then two finger A, thumb E, two finger A, four finger C. You can move your thumb to A, two finger C, and then four finger E. Now these two notes, the E and the C following, are actually not staccato, they're legato. So E, C, then five finger F, four E, two C, thumb A. So that whole first figure put together sounds like this. This is the first two measures with the pickup note. And you see the genius there where Schumann has those two legato notes in the middle. It totally adds a different emphasis that makes that little figure more interesting. Now we're going to go on to the next two measures, measures 3 and 4, and it's going to do a similar thing to measure 2. We have two legato notes. We move our hand, four finger will be on B above middle C, and then two finger G sharp, then five finger C, we're going back to the bouncy, C, four finger B, two finger G sharp, thumb E, three finger A, thumb E, five finger C, four finger B. Then there's an eighth rest, and we'll start on the next figure in a minute. So that third and fourth measure all together sounds like this. And the whole first line sounds like this. Now you may have heard me make a big emphasis on the notes that are legato, that are not bouncy. That's because in the music there is a sforzando right below the first of the two notes that are legato. That means you play that very hard in that spot. So again, so that is the first line. Now we're going to start with the pickup to the second line, which means that there is an eighth note at the very end of the first line that kind of starts the phrase that's mostly on the second line. And they do the same thing when you first begin. They just stick that pickup note, that eighth note all by itself, in a tiny little partial measure at the beginning, and then you actually start on the first full measure afterwards. And you'll notice that they take it from the last measure. It's sort of an interesting little theory thing. But anyway, pickup note. We're going to start again on the E, thumb on the E, and it does the same thing that you did on the first line. So E, A, C, A, C, E. This is the legato notes. E, C, F, E, C, A. More legato notes. B, G sharp, C, B, G sharp, E, A. Now this part is a little bit different. This is the last measure of the second line, and it goes A, E, G sharp, A. And that is the end of that line. I'm going to play that all together. And that's the first two lines. Now we're going to change the sound of the piece. We're going to do something a little different. In the last two lines of this piece, the left hand has the moving parts and the right hand is going to do chords. Now the chords are still mostly staccato, so we have a little bit of counting to do here. You will notice that the third line also starts with a tiny little measure that has a pickup note in it for the left hand. It's an eighth rest, however, in the right hand. So we have a little bit of a rest. And then we start on the first full measure of the third line. Now these are, we have eighth notes, but we have the occasional quarter note, but this measure is all eighth notes and eighth rests. So it's going to sound like this. We start with a chord, our thumb on C, our 3-finger on F, and our 5-finger on A. And by C I mean middle C. So all together, then we have 2 eighth rests, and then another chord. So if we're counting it, it's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Or you could count it like with a total of 6, because this is in 6/8 time, meaning 6 beats per measure. Eighth note gets 1 beat. So it's going to sound like this if you count 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Next, we're going to have an actual legato quarter note. It's also got a sforzando, which if you remember means you play it loudly there. It starts with our 2-finger on F and our 4-finger on A. So it's going to sound like, and then we have the same chord repeated twice in staccato 8th note form. Then we have 2 eighth rests. So if we're counting, it's going to sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Excuse me. Next chord is going to have the same pattern. Legato quarter note, followed by 2 eighth note chords, and then 2 eighth rests. So this chord, thumb on E, 2-finger on G, 5-finger on the C above middle C. It's got a sforzando, so you play it loud, followed by 2 more of the same chord, staccato, eighth notes. So if we count it, it'll sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 are the rests. Then we have an F chord. So we're going to start with our thumb on F, 3-finger A, 5-finger C above middle C. Now these are all eighth notes, so we're going to play this first, bouncy staccato, then A, 3-finger A, thumb on C, and then we move to another chord, thumb on E above middle C, and you can have your 4-finger or 2-finger, I put my 2-finger on G above that. So all together, that measure sounds like this. Rest, rest. So this whole line sounds like this. We start with an eighth rest, while the left hand has a pickup note, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's that line. Now the last line of the piece is it's pretty much an exact repeat except for the very last measure. So let's start off again, except we don't have the pickup note. Let's start off again with the C, F, A chord, and it's staccato. So we have chord, rest, rest, chord, rest, rest, and then we have the F and the A chord with our 2 and 4-finger. Starts off legato, has a sforzando, and it's a quarter note, so followed by 2 eighth chords with staccatos, and then rest, rest. Then we have the E, G, C, rest, rest, and the last chord, which is a little different, middle C, F, A, it's staccato, rest, and then we have C on the bottom, 4-finger on G, and then immediately followed by 3-finger F. Now that one is a little bit of a different pattern too. It has the first chord, rest, second chord, and then one more rest afterwards. Now, this whole line sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now you'll notice that there's a missing beat in the last measure. It doesn't add up to 6 beats, and that's because they took it and they stuck it on the beginning of the piece as a pickup note. And it makes sense because you're going to go back and repeat the first 2 measures. At the bottom it says D, C, Al, Fine, which means it's Italian for go back to the beginning and play until you get to Fine. So you would actually repeat those first 2 lines, and that's where the missing beat went. So enjoy the right hand of Wilder Reiter.